health and the desire for good health is something that we all share, no matter our backgrounds or heritage or wherever we are from. So health is something so fundamental that, of course, during the past year especially, we've all been talking about health and how to maintain good health. Well, and this is why we're gathered here today, because we're going to talk about health and how to maintain health. A health expo is not about teaching you how to treat illness. A health expo is there to teach you how to listen to your body, to recognize when something is probably not quite right, and it also helps you to prevent disease. Prevention is one of the main pillars of health and of public health in general. So in a health expo, you will learn plenty of interesting new facts, how to maintain health, how to stay healthy, how to prevent illness, and probably to change your lifestyle in a way that you can be even healthier. We, as an Adventist church, we have a special interest in health. Our church has many schools, many universities that in health. Notably in the US, of course, there are plenty of large universities that are engaging in research and in healthcare, and they're very famous. And of course, they have produced many programs, especially one of the programs that we're going to introduce today. Adventist health is holistic. What does holistic mean? It's a word that's been thrown around a few times. Well, holistic health means it is not just the health of the body. We do believe, of course, in physical health, and through physical lifestyle changes that we can maintain our physical health. However, our body is not a standalone concept. Our body also consists of our mind and of our heart. So holistic health also always includes mental health and also spiritual health. And this is why we're going to talk today about the 8 principles of health. You're going to be taken through 8 presentations that are going to give you an overview of what holistic health actually contains. So those 8 principles are put together in the acronym New Start. It's a very positive word that I like very much. And I hope today, after those presentations, you will all be happy and engaged and positive to actually start anew. So for this new start, we're going to listen to presentations about nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, fresh air, and rest, good sleeping habits, and trust. So I hope you enjoy your time today. We have many specialists, we have many people here, we have many medical experts. You will have also time and opportunity to ask questions. And all I hope is that we can inspire you today for a new start. Have fun.
So, good morning to everybody. I'm so excited that everybody's here today. I'm so excited that I've been invited to be a part of this expo, and I'm really excited that I drew the end, right? So I get to kick off the very first presentation with a very brief conversation about nutrition. And my big hope is that over the next 5 to 7 minutes, that my accent doesn't make you guys laugh too much, right? Because I'm from America. But with that being said, I really just want to ask a question, right? So I want to start out with the question, why do we eat what we eat? Think about it. Every day, if we're lucky, we get a chance to eat. Some of us are really lucky, we get to eat several times a day. Well, with every meal comes a decision, right? Do we eat it, do we drink it, or do we not? So what's driving these decisions? Well, there's numerous things that are driving them. Fun, right? We eat and drink things that we wouldn't normally when we're out having a good time. Our culture influences what we eat. Taste, of course. Cost is a huge thing that influences our decisions, right? A steak costs more than beans and rice. And time, how much time we have to eat is going to influence our choices, right? If you only have 5 or 10 minutes to eat, you're much more likely to throw something in a microwave. But here's one. What about nutrition? How much is nutrition influencing our decisions? Now, normally when I ask this question, I always get the same answer, right? Most people have absolutely no idea what we're talking about when we really are talking about nutrition. So let me make it really easy. Nutrition is simply a conversation. It's a study of nutrients, right? So nutrition is nutrients. So I want you to remember that. Nutrition is nutrients. So half of you are probably thinking, great. The other half of you are thinking this. Well, what are they? Well, I can explain that simply too. A nutrient is something that you eat or drink that helps your body move, function, or grow. And I say it that way specifically because it's not just what we eat and drink. People eat and drink lots of things, but because there's no nutrients, it doesn't help them move, function, and grow. So primarily, there are 3 main nutrients that help our bodies do this, right? And you've probably heard of them, right? Carbohydrates. The other one, that's right, fats. And the last one, proteins, exactly right. These are the primary nutrients that build our bodies, right? But what's funny is when I ask people to tell me what they eat the most of, they usually don't mention one of these 3. Usually I get one of these 3, unfortunately. These have become our macronutrients to many people. And the World Health Organization has recognized that. Look at what they said. As you can see here, a lot of people are dying. 63% equals about 42 million people a year. 42 million people are dying because of the way that they take care of themselves. And that's, of course, what this expo is about. It's about helping you learn tips to take care of yourself better as best you can under the circumstances so that you don't become one of those 42 million. So it's with these words that I welcome you to 4 tips to great nutrition, because I'm not going to just tell you to eat better, right? No, I'm going to share a couple of tips with you on how to do it. So let's just jump into number 1. These are very simple. Never eat anything that you can't pronounce. So what does that mean? Well, let me show you 3 ingredients that I saw on the back of a food label this week. Anybody want to try to pronounce these 3? Zinc bisglycinate. Ooh, sodium tripolyphosphate. Is it making you guys hungry, right? Thinking about these? Well, check these out. Apples, can pronounce that. Corn, can't miss that, right? Easy to pronounce. And fish. So right off the bat, if you just eat what you can pronounce, you're going to make better choices, right? So number 2, again, another simple thing. If you can't imagine what this thing is, don't eat it. It's probably not the best for you. Let me give you an example again. Let's go back to those 3 ingredients, right? So the 3 ingredients that we had. Who can actually imagine what these things would look like on your plate, right? Is it a soup? Is it a sandwich? Can you imagine throwing sodium tripolyphosphate on a grill? You can't do it, right? But what about this? Apples, corn, and fish. We all know what that looks like, right? Of course we do. Immediately, you know what it's going to look like on the plate. You can imagine what it's going to look like when people serve it to you. So number 2, if you can't visualize it, you probably shouldn't be eating it very often. Number 3, don't eat it if it can't rot. How many of you have gone to McDonald's, you got some fries, you dropped one at a stoplight under your chair, under your seat, and then a month later you come back looking for some change or a pen or something that you dropped, and there's that French fry. It's still sitting there a month later, looks just brand new. That's because there's so many chemicals and preservatives preventing it from breaking down that would be terrible if you put it in your body, right? Food is meant to be digested. Means breaking down. So if you eat something loaded with preservatives that resist digestion, it's just going to mess up your tummy, right? So number 3, if it doesn't rot, you probably shouldn't be eating it. Now that leads us to number 4 and our last one. Never eat anything that didn't grow, right? Think about it. When you think about food, do strawberries grow? Of course they grow, right? They start out little and then they grow. What about corn? Same way, it starts out as little baby corn, then it grows up into a full ear of corn, right? Even our little fish, little fishy friend there, Flipper, he actually started as a baby and he had to grow up. So food, real food grows. It doesn't get manufactured, right? And so if you're eating things that did not grow, again, chances are it's probably not the healthiest for you. So really quickly, let's do a quick summary, right? Nutrition equals nutrients. That's right, nutrition equals nutrients. There's 3 primary nutrients, right? Do you remember what they are? Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. That's good if you knew those. And then what are the 4 principles that we can implement today? Don't eat it if you can't pronounce it. Don't eat it if you can't even imagine what it looks like. Don't eat it if it doesn't rot. And don't eat it if it didn't grow. If you just apply these 4 principles to the best of your ability under the circumstances, I promise you, you're going to make better decisions and your health is going to start improving from today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and I hope it helped you and I hope you enjoy the rest of this expo.
And our next presenter is Sister Azed.
Good morning, all. It's good to have you joining us on this wonderful Health Expo for today. My name is Azed Ingona, and I'm a member of Campio SDA Church, and I'm a practicing occupational therapist. So moving on from the first letter of the acronym, New Start, we are now going to the letter E, and the letter E stands for exercise. Exercise. So what is exercise all about? What is exercise all about? We hear people talking about exercise. Basically, exercise is about getting up and getting moving. And then exercise, as we know, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So we need to, this body is a marvelous machine. And then exercise, we need to be putting the body to work and can increase physical strength and resistance to disease, especially in this pandemic. Then exercise will improve your outlook on life. Who doesn't want that? We all do. Let's look at the benefits of exercise, some of the benefits of exercise. We've got so many benefits of exercise. So these are just a few, okay? So they help, exercise helps control weight in conjunction with a balanced diet. So it's, you won't lose a lot of weight if you have not changed your diet. Then exercise will also reduce the risk of heart disease. It helps your body to manage blood sugar and insulin, helps you with quitting your addictions like smoking and then maybe overeating, any other addiction. Exercise will also improve your mental health and mood. You find that most of the time when you go exercising, you come back, you find that you feel much better. You feel much better. Then helps keep your thinking, learning, and judgment skills sharp as you age. It improves your sleep. You will not need a sleeping pill. As long as you continue exercising, you find that you'll be finding that it will be easy for you to go and sleep. Then it reduces, okay, it increases your chances of living longer, and then it can also improve your sexual health, okay? Continuing on. So what are the types of exercises that we can do? We've got a few that that are commonly engaged in, which are cardio. And we know that cardio is any vigorous activity that increases the heart rate, respiration, oxygen, and blood flow throughout the body. Okay, and examples of cardio would be running, swimming, cycling, all those are examples. And then we've got strength, resistance, or strength training. Strength, this type of exercises, apparently they seem to burn more calories. So that of course will help us in losing weight. And then you find that weights are used during this exercise, or you can use the body weight itself. Then we also have what we call the flexibility exercises. These are important because they help us to improve the range of movement in our joints. And the types of exercises we can do would be like stretching. And this is normally good for people who have had like an operation, people with arthritis, you know, just to make sure that they don't lose that movement in their joints. So that will be good to engage in. Then of course, we've got the balance. Balance, of course, this is to help us improve the body balance. As we improve the body balance, you find that this will prevent falls also. Yeah, because the body will be in that balance, you'll be able to do things without the fear of or the risk of falling. Okay. So now that we know of the benefits, we know of the types of exercises, what things should we consider before we start doing these exercises? So one of the things is age. It is we need to be realistic because there are certain exercises that I cannot do, and there are certain exercises that older people cannot do. Then there are exercises that younger people can do. So it's wise that we always consider our age and of course our level of fitness. You cannot say next week I'll be participating in a marathon when you have not even been walking, later on, not even like once a week or so. No. So consider your level of fitness before you start or engage in any type of exercise. Then the condition of the body. For example, have you just had surgery or so? There are certain things that you cannot do or certain types of exercises you cannot do. And then time of the day. What time is best for you to go out and exercise? Okay. Okay. Then moving on. So how often should I exercise? How often should I exercise? Okay. So you find that we need to aim to exercise our bodies at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity a week, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity. Then we should aim to be physically active every day. Any activity is better than none, and more is better still. Then we should do strengthening activities that work all major muscles, the legs, the hips, the back, abdomen, okay? And at least aim for 2 days a week to do that, okay? Then reduce time spent sitting or lying down and break up periods of not moving with some activity. Then the last point there is FIT. FIT is a short form for frequency, intensity, and time. We need to consider how often are we doing these exercises, how intense is the exercise that we are doing, and the duration of that exercise. All these things we need to consider as we do our exercises. Then precautions. When we start our exercises, we need to also remember that, especially if we have not been exercising in a long time, start slowly and progress gradually. Then it is better to exercise before a meal than right after a meal. This is because when we have had our meal, you find that the body system is now focusing on the digestive system. But if we go, especially for a vigorous exercise, you find that that will like confuse the body, because the body really needs to digest that food, that at the end of it all, we should get all the nutrients that our previous speaker was talking about. Then we should allow time to warm up and cool down, because our body is wonderfully made. It's got all these joints. We need to make sure that our joints are working well. This is where the flexibility exercises come in, like stretching, so that the fluids in the joint lubricate them so that we are safe. Then discontinue your exercise and see your GP should you have any of the following symptoms, okay? That would include pain in your chest, teeth, your jaw, neck, or arms, difficulty in breathing, lightheadedness, discomfort or pains in your joints, or excessive fatigue. So those are just some of the precautions we need to take. Then of course we need to, how can we make exercise as part of our routine? Okay, a regular routine. Make everyday tasks more active. Even small changes can help. You can take the stairs instead of the elevator. Walk down the hall to your co-worker's office instead of sending an email. Wash the car yourself, especially in this weather. It's very practical, we can do that. And then park further away from your destination when you go shopping. Be active with friends and family. And having a workout with a partner may make you more likely to enjoy the exercise. And basically, I think it gives you the motivation as well. Then you can start also by plan social activities that involve exercise. Okay. Then you might also have to consider joining an exercise group. That of course will give you some motivation to make sure that you're doing this all the time. Okay. Then, okay, so finally, what are we saying? We are saying that a balanced and well-planned exercise is the wisest investment we can ever make. Choose an activity that you enjoy. That is very key. Choose an activity that you enjoy. Otherwise, you're more likely to fall off the wagon. Then set a time of the day and stick to it. And finally, have fun and feel better every day. Now, remember, we are wonderfully and fearfully made. So let's keep exercising. Thank you.
What a fantastic presentation, Sister Azed. I really, really, really appreciated what you actually said there about the exercise and how there were different ways for people to be able to exercise. I actually have a question for you. So would you share with us in 1 minute, what are some of the things you like to do for exercise to keep yourself active?
Okay. What I like doing, basically, it's, I love walking. I love walking, and I take walking, I make my walking very meaningful. It's a time that I reflect. It's a time that I do my prayers. And it's a time like when I've got a decision that I really need to make. I know by the time I'm coming back from my 1 hour walk, the Lord will have told me what to do. Yeah, because the mind is thinking, it's so alert. But what I also notice out of all this, from all the benefits that we mentioned, all the benefits of exercise, it's all to do with the blood flow. It's all to do with the blood flow in all the different parts of the body. And as we get that blood flow, because our cells are being fed with the glucose, the insulin levels are being, maintained well, you find that you are able to function well as a beautiful machine that God has made.
Fantastic. I actually appreciate that you brought up walking, because a lot of times when people think of exercise, they think of these professional athletes, you know what I mean, in the gym, and they're really working hard. But walking, you're saying that walking can actually begin to improve your health. You don't have to be in a gym with all this fancy equipment. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes, yes. But I mean, depending on what you do, if you want to lose weight, you have to make sure that your walking is not like just strolling in the park. You know, it has to be a bit vigorous, progressive to vigorous walking also. And then the duration, you cannot do 30 minutes of just moderate walking. That is just like maintaining, but you need to make at least a minimum for lost weight, like one hour, then that will be quite effective. Yeah.
So when you talk about moderate and vigorous, what you're suggesting is that when we're walking, we shouldn't walk like we're in a mall, but we should walk hard enough that our heartbeats start to improve. Oh,
yes,
I understand.
yes. Purposeful walking, yeah.
Purposeful, that's a new term for me. Well, thank you. That was an absolutely fantastic presentation, and I'm sure people are going to take it on board. So now I'm really excited to move on to our next presenter. We're going to be discussing water. And so up next is our sister Sharon, and she's going to be sharing with us a 5 to 7 minute presentation about the value of water. Sharon, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the benefits of drinking water. Just checking, can you all see my screen? Yeah, excellent. That's wonderful.
Yes, we can see it.
Fantastic. My name is Sharon. I'm delighted that so many of you have joined us today. Please feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat. We will discuss them at the end of the presentation. So, a question to get us started. The slides aren't moving. Just bear with me one moment. Okay, hopefully they won't move twice. So, a question: how long can you survive without water? That's a question for you to answer. Feel free to put it in the chat. You're unmuted, so just shout out the answer. How long can you survive without water?
3 days.
Oh, excellent. Well done. So not very long at all. Well done. So yeah, maximum up to 3 days, but that really depends on how much water you've drunk, your body size, your environment, but generally 3 days. Not long at all. Although we can manage without food for anything from a week to around a month, not drinking water will negatively affect your health. In fact, 2/3 of your body is made up of water. So even becoming slightly dehydrated will bring about noticeable health changes after just 1 day. However, most people really undervalue the importance of water. So another question for you. What percentage of water is our body made up of? What percentage of water is our body made up of? You're
75%.
Oh, very close, very close. 70%. About 70% of your total weight is water. Your body uses water for cleansing and cooling itself and to maintain a proper chemical balance. You lose water when you perspire, when you breathe, and through body waste. A loss of 20% of your body's water could even prove fatal. Researchers found that athletes who drank water to quench thirst did not have the endurance of those who drank as much water as they had lost. Athletes who drank more water did not become as fatigued, and body temperature remained close to normal. So, how much water should we drink? Forcing the body to work with limited amounts of fluid is like trying to wash the dinner dishes with 1 cup of water. We should drink enough water to keep the urine pale, ideally crystal clear. Usually that would mean about 8 cups a day. Thirst is not an accurate gauge of your need for water. If you're thirsty, then you are already dehydrated. So each day, think about all these dirty dishes with 1 glass of water. You really need sufficient water to wash the dishes. You need sufficient water to clean your body. All beverages are mainly water. So does it matter what I drink? Plain water is the best liquid for the body. Most beverages have sugar, which can slow digestion, contribute to weight gain, cause blood sugar swings, and you also need that extra water to help your metabolism maintain the equilibrium. Colas, Coke, Pepsi contain phosphorus, which can deplete the body's calcium and lead to brittle bones. Nearly all beverages have artificial additives that may irritate the stomach or burden the kidney or the liver. Caffeine is found in coffee, tea, and many sodas. It can raise your blood pressure, blood sugar, and fats. It stimulates the nervous system and can cause irritability, anxiety, tremors, chronic fatigue, and insomnia. Caffeine and alcohol both are diuretics and so deplete the body of water instead of hydrating the body. Question. Unmute or put your answers in the chat. What happens if I don't drink enough water? It's a question for you all. Some answers, please. What happens if I don't drink enough water?
Dehydration.
Excellent. Yes, that's the first thing. Anything else?
Brain
The
fog.
body,
Oh, we had 2 there. Go ahead.
Brain fog.
Brain fog. Anything else?
the body becomes toxic.
Yes, excellent. Wonderful. So we've got quite a few there. So lots of things happen if you don't drink enough water. You gain weight. It sounds strange, but skipping on drinking water can actually cause you to gain weight because your body starts to retain the little water that it has, and then you have a temporary weight gain. When you're not drinking enough water, remember your body holds on to every single drop to preserve or to prevent dehydration. Your energy drops. I think somebody said something like that. And somebody said brain fog, so you lose focus. Do you know that your brain is made up of 80% water? So if you're not drinking enough water, your brain's abilities and function seriously get damaged, and that's why you get the brain fog. Even slight dehydration impairs its abilities. Also, if you're not drinking enough water, there's an increased risk of stroke. Not only can dehydration make you, be part of the cause of you having a stroke, but if you have a stroke and you don't drink enough water, then it can actually make it worse or take you longer to recover. Hunger pangs. You feel hungrier. It's very common to confuse hunger with dehydration. If your stomach is growling, drink water or wait 20 minutes before grabbing those desired snacks that you've been destined to have. It was mentioned before that if you're not drinking enough water, then it will reduce your metabolism. You can get headaches. It messes up your bowels, so you can have constipation and digestion. Your kidneys and your heart don't function properly. When your dehydrated, your heart has to work that bit harder to maintain the blood flow when you stand up. And this is why if there isn't enough water and the heart's working that harder, that's when your brain gets insufficient blood flow, and then you can faint. Premature aging. You can get wrinkly skin and fine lines if you're not drinking enough water. Joint pains, there's not enough fluid going to the joints, so that's when the joint pains start to come in. Water helps to regulate that body temperature. And one of the possible causes, erectile dysfunction. If you're not drinking enough water, it can cause areas in this area. There are many uses for water outside the body, not just drinking. Regular bathing helps to cleanse away dirt and waste products from the skin. Cool water can help to reduce fever, and warm water can bring warmth to a chill body. A warm bath may help you if you're struggling to fall asleep. Do you have trouble waking up in the morning? Then try a cool shower or a brisk rub of your skin with a washcloth dipped in cold water. In summary, water is of vital importance. Use it abundantly for good health and vitality. Thank you for listening. Do we have any questions?
Well, Sharon, that again was a fantastic presentation about water. I have to admit, I did not know that 70% of our body was made of water.
Yes,
So
it is.
Learn something
And learn something new every day.
That's right. So I have a question that people ask often, and I'm hoping that you could answer. So how can people tell if they're drinking enough water? Because you suggested that, you know, there's a lot of factors that influence how much water we drink. You know, obviously a child doesn't have to drink as much as I do because I weigh 4 times their amount. And during the summer, I would assume we drink more than we do during the winter because we're sweating and perspiring more. So how can people, what's a simple way people can use to tell if they're drinking enough water?
Well, generally the advice is at least 8 glasses of water a day, but we are all different. As you pointed out, we're all different shapes, we're all different sizes, we're all different ages. And as you go through your life cycle, you may need more or less water. So the clear way to tell is in your urine. Your urine should not be a dark color. It needs to be pale. A pale straw color, and ideally what you're aiming for is crystal clear urine. So that is the best indicator that you can have that you're drinking enough water, watching the color of your urine.
Well, that is fantastic because that doesn't involve any type of equipment. It doesn't involve any type of medical expertise.
No,
we can all just
exactly.
look at the color, and the clearer it
Yes.
is, you say the clearer it is, the better it is, right?
The clearer, the better. So don't get hung up on, right, I've got to do my 8 glasses. I've done 4. I've got to force the other 4 down. No, your body will tell you how much water you need. Monitor your urine.
Well, absolutely fantastic. That's something that we can take today and apply it today. And that's going to make us, you know, it's really going to help us improve our health. So with that being said, now I can't even wait. We're moving on to a topic that is kind of funny here in England because we don't necessarily get it as much as we do back in the sunshine states where I'm from. But we're going to talk about sunshine. And Sister Jackie is going to come in and she's going to share with us some fantastic tips about why we need to get out and get some sunshine. Sister Jackie, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Hello and good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be here this morning, and glad to have so many people taking part in this expo. This is a new and exciting venture, and I hope you're benefiting from it. As you can probably tell, I'm sitting in a very sunny room at the moment, so forgive me if I seem to be squinting. I'm talking to you today about sunshine, the benefits of sunshine. I'm also grateful for the other presenters who've gone before me and for James doing a great job in keeping us on track. So sunlight, why is it important? Well, as you can see from my slide, it's important to enable life on Earth. Without the sun, we would not have life on Earth. It enables us to have heat on a warmish day like today, And in some countries, it's very, very hot, obviously. It enables us to get light so we can actually see what we're doing, and it enables us to grow food. I'm sitting somewhere where I've got a number of plants like pumpkins and tomatoes growing in this sunny room, hoping to get my own crop for the first time for a few years. The other interesting thing about sunlight, though, is in terms of your personal health, the UV light in sunlight actually helps to kill bacteria and germs. So it's important actually to air out your blankets and pillows and to let the sun in by opening the windows and opening the curtains. So that's an important thing to remember, just to let that light in, because it helps to kill the bacteria and other germs in the rooms. It also helps to kill molds that might grow, because, you know, sometimes a room can be a little damp, but letting sunlight in and letting air in can actually help to improve that. So the health benefits of sunlight. It's found that even just 20 minutes of good sunlight per week can reduce your tendency towards getting colds. So that would be sunlight where perhaps you've got your face, maybe your chest and your arms exposed for 20 minutes each week will help to reduce the likelihood of getting colds. Our bones are strengthened by sunlight. And that's because the sunlight allows us to make vitamin D. And that helps the calcium absorption from the gut. So whatever you're eating, it helps it to be absorbed. And then it helps the calcium to be deposited in your bones. And in the past, we've had conditions known as rickets, where young children did not have adequate amounts of vitamin D in their diet and not enough sunlight. And even today, it happens on a few occasions where people are not exposed to enough sunlight. And that actually is prevented by, can reverse the rickets or the tendency towards weakened bones or osteoporosis. Unfortunately, for young children who get rickets, oftentimes it can't be reversed. So it's important that children have adequate calcium in their diet and adequate sunlight as well. Being in the sunlight, many people find this, that if they have arthritic joints, it can actually help the pain and the swelling. Healing properties also occur to the skin. It's been found that wounds heal much better if sunlight exposure happens. So here's a chance for you to see on the right-hand side some of the calcium-rich foods that you can actually eat that will help your body to get sufficient calcium in your diet, and then for the sunlight to work with the vitamin D to get that into the bones. Does anybody in the group want to actually say which of these calcium-rich foods they enjoy and how, maybe a tip on how they like to cook them? Can I get one volunteer from the audience? Look at those calcium-rich foods. Which things do you like to use and which one could you put into a simple recipe? Nobody?
Jackie, the butternut squash. The butternut squash is just jumping off the page.
Tell me about that, James.
So butternut squash, the easiest way to make it is you take it, you get a sharp knife, cut it right in half, take a spoon, get out all those seeds, put the seeds to the side, and then you just put it in an oven and bake it for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. You sprinkle a little cinnamon on top of it, and it's so wonderful.
Thank you for that, James. I think cinnamon is also known to have its own health benefits in terms of helping people to lose weight, for example. That's an excellent. Hey, was there anybody else?
Spinach.
Spinach. Tell me, Jay, how you normally cook spinach?
Ever so easily. A little onion, a little thyme, little piece of thyme, and you cut it up nicely and steam it, and it's done. You might have a little seasoning, but it's not necessary, and it's so good for your body. It's so good. Simple, quick. Onion, thyme, maybe a little bit of oil, but you don't need that. And that is it, really. Scallion as well, and a little seasoning.
Sounds delicious.
And
You can
Val
also
says
make smoothies.
avocado.
Avocado, yes.
And Cheryl says sauteed broccoli, sesame oil, garlic, and sea salt.
That sounds delicious. Excellent. So maybe we'll keep a note of those recipes, and they're very simple ones there. And the simpler the recipe, the healthier it is, the less additives and the less things you put in it, like special sauces and so on, the healthier the food is. So thank you for those wonderful suggestions. So moving on, more benefits. There's a connection with a lowered incidence of dental cavities for people who are exposed to good sunlight. The red blood cells also seem to function better after sun exposure. They have an increased ability to carry and deliver oxygen to the body's cells. One's immunity is increased and your body's resistance to infection is also strengthened. And particularly the white blood cells known as the lymphocytes are enabled, and as are antibodies, which are the small fragments that help to fight infection. Your cholesterol is moderately lowered by sunlight exposure because it too is changed to vitamin D in the skin. Somebody mentioned sexual health earlier. I think it was Sister Azed talking about exercise. And like exercise, sunlight increases libido, and that's through the release of testosterone and estrogen. What about your mental health? I've noticed, and I'm sure we have all noticed, that when the sun is out, people's mental health just improves so much. People become more friendly and chatty. They more often go outdoors. They're doing things they enjoy, and it just lifts them up. So without a doubt, mental health is improved by good sunlight. And melatonin output is boosted as well, and that helps you to sleep better. Sunlight is a very important therapy, especially if it's combined with exercise, in preventing acute and chronic depression. Now, my colleagues have introduced themselves, and sorry I didn't do so at the beginning. I'm a doctor, and a lot of the time I'm dealing with individuals who are suffering with depression, sometimes due to work situations, sometimes finances, sometimes personal factors. And one of the things I always recommend is exercise. But on top of that, I recommend going out in the sunlight and having a walk. I'm sure that those of us that can do that regularly, even during this lockdown, the government's recommendation was to go out for 1 hour a day if you can, and if you weren't totally shielding. And that 1 hour of exercise they knew would actually help boost people's mental well-being in these challenging times. So specifically, sunlight helps to improve your happiness by the release of serotonin and dopamine, two of the chemicals in the brain. They're the feel-good chemicals. So in addition, some women suffer with premenstrual syndrome. That's the buildup of tension in the body just before a period starts, and it's found that sunlight helps to relieve that. I guess with sunlight around, your mood improves, your body relaxes, and those hormones that can make you feel very uncomfortable just before a period are eased off. Sunlight also boosts cognitive function. Certainly, you see students sitting on the grass, sometimes studying. Sunlight can be a bit bright if you're reading, but certainly cognitive function is boosted. And as a child, I used to sit outdoors a lot when studying. There is a disadvantage, though, of course, to sunlight, and some advantages, in fact. Let's talk about the advantages first. Cancer of the breast, colon, and prostate are less likely in people who have good exposure to sunlight. So that's something we probably weren't aware of. And I'm sorry about the unpleasant pictures on the right that we as doctors sometimes have to look at. But sometimes it's good to know what these things look like, because sometimes in our community, people have skin cancers without realizing them. I certainly remember a music teacher of our son, who we went to her every week, and I noticed something growing on her nose, and it was a basal cell carcinoma, which she had to have removed. So sunlight, as you must recognize, can be dangerous in large amounts. So it's important that we actually limit our exposure to the sun. And for those that can see me, I know we have a few people on the phone, I'm a darker skinned person, and I would think, well, I can tolerate a lot of sun. But it's true to say that even dark-skinned people have to limit their exposure to sunlight. So a goal of up to 30 minutes a day is realistic for most people. And if you're starting off being in the sun, you should start off with just 5 minutes if you're fair-skinned, or 15 minutes. And sometimes you go to the beach or you go outdoors and you see people exposing themselves for very long periods of time. And that can lead to sunburn, which you can see on the right, but also increases the risk of these skin cancers that you can see on the right as well. The basal cell carcinoma and the squamous cell carcinoma. The melanoma, which is the more harmful one, because it can spread to other parts of the body quite vigorously. And then you also have the Merkel cell carcinoma, which is not seen so commonly. So certainly can I advise you, if you see any unusual rashes on your skin, can you please make contact with your doctor? If you think particularly that it might be a skin cancer, and they will actually have a look at it for you and perhaps get you sent off to get tests. So as I say, even dark-skinned people can develop skin cancers. And if my memory serves me correct, Bob Marley died of a skin cancer that grew on his leg. So that kind of wraps up my presentation on sunlight. Please remember though, that wet skin actually burns faster, and that ultraviolet rays of the sun can reflect off snow. So when you go skiing, if you go skiing, do bear in mind, you can also get sunburn there. Sand and water exposure also increase your exposure to sunlight. So the level of UV light that your body is receiving will increase if you're in those circumstances. So use a good high factor sunblock cream. And some of the sunblock creams, obviously for darker skinned people, just be careful about what type they are, because you don't want to leave like a purplish mark on your face. So some of them rub in well, so test it before you use it. But either way, use it. Ultraviolet rays can still actually burn even on a cloudy day. So today is a little cloudy, but those rays can still burn. So the take-home message is enjoy sun sparingly. It will increase your vitality and your good health. Do we have any questions? Are there any in the chat or anybody that wants to unmute and give me a question?
Well, Jackie, I actually have a couple of questions based on your presentation, which was absolutely fantastic. And there are two questions that really deal with the practicality of getting sunlight. As you all can tell, again, I'm not from here. And so obviously your climate is sometimes makes getting sunlight, getting sunshine challenging because of the rain, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So my question would be, even if it's cold outside sometimes, but it's sunny, which you often see here, does the sunlight still help? Like, should we go outside in the sunlight, even if it's a little bit colder than what we're comfortable with?
Yes, I can understand that. And this country, unfortunately, has a large number of people who are vitamin D deficient. I'm actually one of them as well. Ideally, yes, you should go out in the sunlight, but it's cold, so people wrap up warm and maybe only their face is exposed, which probably isn't enough. But you remember I mentioned 20 minutes per week is enough to try and keep away colds. So I guess if you're just exposing your face and maybe your chest, and maybe your hands and your arms a little to some extent for 20 minutes a week, that would be a help in the winter months. But in the summer months, obviously you can boost your levels of sunlight and do the best you can there. Vitamin D supplementation is being recommended quite strongly for people in the UK. And darker skinned and even light skinned people are actually needing to have vitamin D boosts. And as you might be aware, we think it actually helps with managing COVID-19 as well. So to answer your question in brief, James, which is a great question, it is still important to get sunlight in the winter months. So still go out for your walks as part of your exercise and as part of taking in fresh air. And at the same time, you will get some sunlight exposure. And the early morning sunlight is the best. So if you can go to around about 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier, depending on when the sun rises, that early morning sunlight has the highest level of UV light, and it's a very good quality sun. So that's my advice on that question.
Very interesting. So my last question would be, what are some practical tips other than, for instance, suntan lotion? Do sunglasses help block the sun rays, provide us some protection? Do hats? What are some practical ways other than just smothering ourselves in a plaster of suntan lotion that we can go out and enjoy the weather for longer periods without needing excessive amounts of lotion? What are some tips?
Good question. Certainly a sun hat helps to keep the sun off your face. Sunglasses help. You can get the polarized glasses and they're actually better in keeping off the UV light, but they are more costly. There are certain clothes, and I can't remember, I think they're called Uniglow or something like that. And they basically help to repel sunlight. So if you've got children playing on a beach for a few hours at a time, they can wear this clothing, which will protect them from sunlight as they play in the sand. And what's actually been found was that if you're exposed to a high level of sunlight in childhood, you're more likely to get skin cancers in older age, which is something I didn't mention earlier. So the clothing, the hats, the sunglasses, and then of course the sunblock lotion. I actually use a factor 50 sunblock lotion on my skin. Just sharing a personal bit of information. I have lupus, so I'm particularly sensitive to sunlight, and it can actually activate or trigger lupus. So I don't know if there's any more questions, and those are two great questions, James. Are there any more questions from the audience? Are there any questions in the chat?
In the chat we have from Vivia. Can the body store vitamin D and for how long? And the second question is from Sherelle Pear. Any chemical-free sunblock options such as natural oil? Question mark.
Two very good questions. The storage of vitamin D, yes, I believe it can be stored, but I'll be honest and say I'm not sure how long for. But I will check that out and come back to Sister Vivia. Certainly, we're using it at a fairly rapid rate, and most of us are actually encouraged to take vitamin D for at least the darker, colder 6 months of the year, and some of us all year long. So it just shows you how rapidly we're turning it over. We're only taking it in micrograms, but we are turning it over quite rapidly. I know we have a few experts in our audience, so I'm going to throw that question about vitamin D out to any experts in the audience who want to give their opinion on the sharing, on the storage of vitamin D. While we have this opportunity, we might as well all learn at the same time. Do we have any experts on vitamin D first? And then I'll come to the natural sunblocks after that. Any of my doctor colleagues, nursing colleagues, nutritionists?
Well, thank you, Jackie. Passy will be the next speaker. Well, for vitamin D, I think all we know is if you do, for example, expose yourself to sunlight for about 15 minutes, the effects can last up to 1 week. So certainly, yes, there is a storage thing, which is there that, yeah, it can perhaps last up to even a week when you exposed to sunlight, the vitamin D storage.
That's super. Thank you, Passy. And what about natural sunblocks? Well, I am a strong sunblock user. So is there anybody in the audience that can tell me what they use to naturally protect their skin? I was thinking olive oil, but I don't know how effectively it will actually stave off UV light. So there may be something you need to add to it. Do we have any naturopaths or nutritionists or anybody on the chat today on the program who knows about natural ways to protect your skin? Okay.
Well, good morning. Hi. I will have to say something here. Natural ways to protect your skin is one thing that we probably have not mentioned yet, and that's shade. The only way we can properly protect our skin without using sunscreen is staying in the shade, wearing a hat, wearing probably a long-sleeved, very thin shirt of silk or something, and that will, of course, protect our skin. However, even when we're sitting in the shade, we're still exposed to UV rays. So sunscreen, unfortunately, is always needed. Of course, you can stick to the sensitive products, but if you're only using oil, for example, either coconut or olive oil, all you do is roast your skin, but you're not going to protect it. So this is very important to mention here.
Thank you very much, Sister Beatrice. Okay, so I think that covers my slot. Thank you so much for participating and contributing. God bless you. And I think James is going to introduce our next speaker.
Yeah, but before James introduces, there was a message in the chat which says we could use aloe vera to protect our skin as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for that contribution.
Thank you so much, Sister Jackie. And I have to say, when I was looking at that slide with all those calcium-rich foods, it's funny, I didn't see anything. I didn't see any sodium tripolyphosphate on there. So
that doesn't grow in the ground like that, though, does it?
No, right? Doesn't grow, right? So
taking on board your point.
Good tip there.
But yeah, there are supplements you can get in health food shops or online. And I was thinking about the aloe vera. It is quite sticky, but I have seen people massaging it, so I don't know if they mix it with a natural mineral oil, perhaps. And I don't know how effective it is in blocking, whether it's a factor 30 or, you know. So I'll certainly have a look at that. And that was a very good question. And a very good answer. Thank you.
So up next, as we all alluded to, we will be discussing the principle of temperance. Temperance is a very strange word, but I know Brother Passy is going to break it down for us and help us understand what it means and how to apply it in our food decisions. So Brother Passy, it's over to you.
Thank you, James. Hope you can see my screen, James. and everyone else?
I cannot.
You can.
I cannot see your slides, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, okay. You can see my slides now.
No, I cannot.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about temperance today, which is the 5th topic in our New Start program. So it's the first of the second T's. My kind co-presenters have asked me to talk about temperance, perhaps because that's the only one which needs defining. The rest of them, you know what water is, exercise, sunshine, and nutrition. Excellent presentations from James, Azed, Sharon, and Jackie. So we're going to talk about temperance.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, Elder Beauty. Your slides aren't showing at the moment.
Oh,
so,
oh, they're not showing. Okay.
No.
Let me try again. Sorry. Is it showing now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So temperance, like I said, it's the only one which probably needs definition. It's about a balanced life. So we're talking about self-control. The two things you cannot afford to forget about temperance are moderation and abstinence. You can forget about everything else I'm going to talk about, but moderation and abstinence are absolutely vital to remember. James, Azed, Sharon, Jackie have given excellent presentations on those things which are good to our bodies. Also, Grace and James will also give you 2 other good things which are excellent for our bodies. But the key thing is even good things should be used intelligently, and that's moderation, and that's part of temperance. The second key part of temperance is abstinence. In other words, those things which are harmful to our bodies, we should not use them at all. The goal of temperance would be we need peak physical, mental, and emotional well-being. If we're living an unbalanced lifestyle, it robs people of a rich, healthy, and satisfying life. So like I said about moderation, you've already been given the good things which we need to do. We just need to use them in moderation, intelligently. But I'm going to highlight 3 things which are harmful to our bodies, 3 substances. So we'll be talking about alcohol, and then we'll talk about drugs, and then we'll talk about tobacco. So alcohol, there are millions of people who consume alcohol beverages, and the advertisements these days, they portray drinking as cool, makes people happy. But what they fail to do is to show the other side of alcohol. We do see millions of people who suffer from the effects of alcohol through accidents, assaults, sexual abuse, murders, and suicides, let alone health-related issues which we see in hospitals. The effects of alcohol, every drink of alcohol irreparably destroys brain cells and heart muscle. And you heard me right, irreparably destroys brain cells and heart muscle. If you are to do a CT, a head scan in someone who is perhaps in their 40s, who are alcoholics for at least 15 years, their brain, the changes in their brain will be equivalent to what you'd expect in someone who is over the age of 80. In other words, alcohol will destroy those brain cells and lead to shrinking of the brain. It also increases the risk of things like stroke, heart failure, causes high blood pressure, and also can cause some type of cancers. And I don't know if you knew, some people think if I just have 1 or 2 drinks, I'm okay. But those 1 or 2 drinks can potentially cause spasm of the coronary arteries. Coronary arteries being those blood vessels which supply our heart. And if they compromise the oxygen supply to the heart, it can potentially contribute to heart attacks. Alcohol can also cause damage to the liver, and the damage to the liver is called liver cirrhosis. These are the people who you see turning, their color starts turning into yellow because the liver can no longer get rid of the toxins in the body. They start accumulating, damaging the body. Alcohol also robs the body of vital vitamins as well as minerals. And one of the saddest statistics are the babies who are actually permanently retarded due to parents who abuse alcohol. There are many reasons why people sometimes start using drugs. So drugs will be the next topic after alcohol. So people use drugs because out of curiosity, like, oh, okay, I wonder how that tastes. I wonder whether it's going to make me high. Some it's just to please friends. Some is to provide an escape from reality or to avoid dealing with problems. But the issue being that repeated drug use can result in drug dependence, physical or psychological, and can result in a vicious cycle. In other words, a cycle which you can't get out of. And the problem being, some people who go in just to say, oh, let me taste how it feels. They get addicted for life, yet there are some who might not. So you can't go saying, oh, okay, I'll just have a quick go and then leave it. Sometimes it can end up in drug dependence. Up to 70% of prison inmates are incarcerated for drug-related crimes. So drugs contributes a lot to crimes and imprisonment. Also, remember, it is far easier to prevent a drug problem than to cure one. If you or someone you know is addicted to drugs, you need to get help. There are so many platforms nowadays out there where you can get help with drug-related problems. The third and final thing we need to abstain from, which could be harmful to our bodies, is tobacco. So tobacco is one of the most addictive of all substances used by humans. I've witnessed patients who present into hospital with tobacco-related illnesses, what we call bronchitis, abbreviated as COPD, in which someone, even walking a short distance, you get very short of breath. But even when they're getting very short of breath, and they know it's the effects of nicotine or tobacco, they are still asking to go out to smoke. Although we might look nasty from the healthcare professional point of view, saying you need to stop smoking, but we know that it's very addictive and difficult to stop. It's a killer. It kills up to half of its users. More than 8 million people a year die because of tobacco. And sad, even more sad still, is that 1.2 million die because of passive smoking. In other words, you are not smoking, but the person next to you, the person you live with, the person who you are driving in the car with is smoking. People still die from it. No wonder government has put that legislation about smoking in cars in the presence of children. Smoking is the single most preventable cause of death in the world, and that's why we need to stop smoking. Like I said, it causes breathing issues called bronchitis or emphysema. It also contributes to many cancers, stomach ulcers, heart disease, and also low birth weight babies. It is also expensive. It's a personal expense, but also a big expense to our National Health Service. But changes in your lifestyle can add years to your life. What's more, your quality of life can vastly improve. In closing, remember, changes in your lifestyle can add years to your life. What's more, your quality of life can vastly improve. Thank you.
Brother Passy, thank you absolutely so much for that presentation. And of course, you know I have some questions for you, right? In fact, I have one primary question, and I'm just dying for you to help us know how to answer this. I'm sure that you have often heard as a doctor in the medical profession, people say, oh, everything's okay as long as you just do it in moderation. So how would you very simply explain to somebody that moderation, how that line of thinking isn't necessarily helpful?
Right. Okay. So when you're talking about thank you very much, James. It's a fantastic question, actually. So when you're talking about moderation, it should always be moderation for good things in our lives. So the aspect of the things we have covered so far, which is exercise, drinking water, sunlight, and some of this nutrition, and also the other two items which will be coming up. But there are some people who say, well, but what if I drink alcohol moderately? What if I smoke moderately? Wouldn't that be still okay, or use drugs moderately? So for those items, because they are harmful to our bodies, it's total abstinence. We need to refrain from using them. And someone may argue, James, that, well, I just want to have one cigarette just to feel how, how it feels like smoking. And that's where the problem lies, because there's a complexity of things which affect addiction, some of which could be genetic link, and some relating to personality, as well as cultures. So it is quite complex. That's one cigarette which you are going to try to say, oh, I'm just going to do it moderately, can lead to addiction for life and the health issues we have talked about.
Okay, so what you're saying then, which is really fascinating, is that moderation is for good things. So
absolutely,
it's one thing to eat a banana, it's another thing to eat 200 bananas, right? That kind of thinking. But when it comes to bad things, we shouldn't be doing bad things in moderation. Well, that totally changes my whole understanding of the concept.
Absolutely. You seem to know about me, James, because I like bananas, but yes, they've got to be in moderation.
Who doesn't like bananas, right? Right. So that's fantastic. So I hope you're right. I hope we take that away, is that we do good things in moderation, bad things we don't do. We don't kill and steal and murder in moderation, right? So let's remember, that's a fantastic thing. So thank you so much. So now we're going to move on to our next topic, which is very much related, I think, to the sunshine issue. We're going to be discussing the value of fresh air and how it can help us have better health. And to do that, we're going to ask Sister Grace, what a beautiful name, to share with us what she has learned about why we should get out and get some fresh air. Sister Grace, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm disabled. I need to share the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Please hit share screen.
I'm not able to, James. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Host.
I will 2 seconds, Grace. I'll just make sure that you can do that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So while we're dealing with these technical difficulties, is there anybody with any questions that they want to throw out now about any of this?
There was one question from Phyllis about smoking while Grace does that, and it's does nicotine patches help with smoking?
Okay, well, I'm going to defer to all of these wonderful doctors here. If your first name starts with doctor, please jump in.
Does nicotine patches help smoking?
Sorry, Duran. So the question was, does nicotine patches help
with smoking? That's a question from Phyllis.
Yeah, so it does help to some extent, but unfortunately, usually the effect is minimal in terms of how it helps stopping smoking. It's almost like just a stopgap for periods. So for example, if patients are admitted into hospital and they are struggling from withdrawal symptoms from smoking, you then using the patches to help them along while they are in hospital. So yes, it does help to some extent, but it's definitely not a cure for it. And I can see there's a question about vapes or e-cigarettes. Again, there isn't much information out there because we're still gathering evidence. As you know, most of the diseases which we talk about, for example, cancer and heart disease, they may take up to 10 years to develop. And if I remember well, I think e-cigarettes and vapes are only introduced in the last 10, 15 years. So even in that short period, we start seeing that they are actually linked with heart disease, with strokes, again, the same diseases which smoking is linked with. So again, e-cigarettes wouldn't be like a cure, and certainly they're not as healthy.
Fantastic. So Sister Grace, have we solved our technical issues yet? There we go. Over to you, Grace.
Okay, so you can see that. My name is Grace Walsh. I'm going to talk about air, the breath of life. Does anybody know quickly how long you can go without breathing, without oxygen? Does anybody know how long you can last without oxygen?
I think there was a case of a person that had drowned and was revived after about 50 minutes, but that was very unusual.
Yeah. Thank you.
5 minutes?
5 minutes, yeah. So there is a range. I have here a comparison. You can go for 4 to 6 weeks without food, perhaps 5 to 7 days. So it depends on the person, you know, how healthy and fit they are. So 5 to 7 days without water, but only minutes. So food is weeks, water is days, but with oxygen, it's just a matter of minutes without air, and it's life-giving oxygen. When we do first aid, you know, like St. John's Ambulance, they say if the person is not breathing, within 3 minutes, the brain cells begin to die. So 3 to 6 minutes, maybe maximum, but as early as 3 minutes, you find that some of the brain cells will begin to die. So fresh air, the air we breathe is not just oxygen, pure oxygen, it's a mixture of gases. The air we breathe in has 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% is argon, carbon dioxide, and other gases. So, you know, when we say we are breathing in oxygen, it's not pure oxygen, it's a mixture of gases. God has put it such a well-balanced mixture that we can survive. They've tried altering this and they found that it doesn't work. The brain is the smallest organ, but it's the one that is 2%, I think, of the body, but it needs more oxygen. It requires more oxygen. So the brain consumes up to 25% of the blood's oxygen supply. Breathing fresh air facilitates clear thinking. So the oxygen supply goes to all the cells in the body, they need oxygen. But the brain is the one that's most sensitive to a shortage of oxygen. So how much oxygen do we use in a day? Believe it or not, air has weight, it can be weighed. And, you know, 3 pounds of food we eat a day on the average, 3 pounds of fluids, 6 pounds of oxygen. We consume more oxygen than all those other, you know, things which we take in. Now, Apollo 8, there was one of the Apollo sort of spacecrafts that had an accident because, you know, they tried to change the mixture of oxygen to take more oxygen into space. They say, oh, we'll need more oxygen. They tried to change everything, but that resulted, you know, there was too much oxygen, sparked, caught fire, and all the astronauts died because they changed the balance of oxygen. Just shows you that what God has put together, we cannot mess with. So what makes fresh air fresh when we say fresh air? So high quality fresh air is actually electrified. The oxygen molecule is negatively charged. And we find that, you know, when you have an electric storm, when there's a storm, that electricity, it charges the air we breathe. So the best air you can have to breathe is after a storm, after, you know, lightning, is electrified charged. Or in the absence of that, if you go where there are, you know, waterfalls, very good. The seaside, the best place for electrified air. And also when you walk in the woods, you know, the trees, they give out oxygen. So when you go walking, if you're walking on the road where there's traffic, then you're just breathing in the fumes from the traffic. That's not a good walk, but it's better to walk than not to walk. But the best walk would be where there are trees, you know, vegetation, waterfalls, a river. Those are the best walks. So fresh air decreases survival of bacteria and viruses in the air and improves learning. When there was a lockdown in the first stages, you know, everything was locked down, you couldn't visit and you couldn't do anything. But the government, they said we could go out for walks, we can exercise. So exercise was not locked down. They say you can still go out for walks, you can do this, because walking in the fresh air, it also helps to fight COVID-19. It's, you know, reduces the survival of bacteria, that exposure to oxygen, and the viruses in the air as well. It helps to destroy them, and it improves the learning. So the red blood cells, we've got red blood cells in the body, they pick up the oxygen from the lungs and carry it to all the cells of the body. Without oxygen, the cells begin to die. Each cell needs oxygen to operate its powerhouses, you know, the mitochondria, the powerhouses to give us energy. Red blood cells then carry the carbon dioxide back to the lungs. So this is an exchange. The carbon dioxide goes back to the lungs, we breathe it out, and then we breathe in oxygen. Did you know that often the most damaging air pollution is in your own house, in your home? So the air we breathe in the home can increase risk of lung cancer, asthma, allergies, and so forth. So if you're wondering about that, the things we use for cleaning, they're very toxic. So avoid toxic cleaning solutions, ventilate the rooms, fight mold and mildew. As soon as you see mold and mildew, those are living things. And when you breathe them in, they can affect your lungs as well. Be aware of the dangers of carbon monoxide. If you've got gas heaters, use a gas stove, they are supposed to be checked every year that they are not emitting carbon monoxide. So this can be in your own homes. Open windows and let the fresh air in when you sleep. In winter, you can just open just a crack, not the whole window, just a crack. As long as there's some fresh air coming in, you know, circulating in the room, and you will have better sleep as well. Oh, I'll go back. The best thing you can do for your brain is exercise. So exercise helps when you're depressed. With the lockdown, COVID-19, people have become depressed, especially if you're living on your own. So going outside, and now the sunlight is out, just that exercise, it will produce those endorphins, happy hormones, and then it will refresh the brain as well. Exercising indoors is all right. It's better than not exercising, but we say the best exercise is outside. And I was reading somewhere, as you exercise outdoors, the mitochondria, the powerhouses, they are more active when you're exercising outdoors in the sunlight than indoors. So the gym is fine, but compared to outdoors is the best. Exercise will increase the circulation of oxygen-rich blood cells to all areas of the body. Your energy level and sense of well-being will improve. So sometimes when people are a bit sad, a bit depressed, they can also encourage themselves, help themselves by exercising outside, outdoors. Now, in addition, the way you carry yourself, an erect posture benefits breathing and optimism. A cramped posture, when you're slouched down like this, you're restricting your lungs, they're not opening up, you can't breathe as well. So a cramped posture impedes good breathing. As I said, the slouching posture makes you look like a beaten, dejected person. In addition, poor posture may cause long-term physical damage, cramping all the internal organs. So you need to be careful. Benefits of breathing deeply or fresh air: we sleep better, it helps us to be more optimistic, we perform better in all areas actually, not just sports, but other areas as well. And there is a good deal of evidence, research has been carried out that when people switch from chest breathing, most of us do not breathe properly. We're breathing from the chest and we're breathing too fast. So we're not getting that deep oxygen going into our lungs. Abdominal breathing is the best. When you watch small babies, newborn, you can see the little tummies going up and down, up and down. But as we grow older, we stop doing that. We stop breathing from the chest. And so when you're breathing and your shoulders are going up, that's a very bad sign. That's not good breathing. When you're breathing, your tummy should come out. That is good breathing. So it helps us to, to be better people, think properly, emotionally, physically, and also it also lowers our stress levels. Every time somebody is stressed, it's just breathe, and it's de-stressing. This is a 14-second break of breathing. When I used to work, people used to have a fag break in the hospital, but you should not have a fag break. You should have a breathing break. For 5 minutes, just go outside, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds. It slows you down. Most actors are quite nervous actually before they go on stage, but when they do the 14-second break, this breathing, it calms you down. It stops you being stressed. And that's it from me. I hope you will start breathing better now that you know this already, but do you practice it? It's practicing that we need.
Sister Grace, that was absolutely fantastic. And I'm dying to hear what questions we have from the audience. I know that there's going to be some great questions, because I have a few myself.
Anybody? We have a few in the chat window.
Pardon?
I can't see any questions coming from the audience. If you can the host see any questions that I can't see?
Yeah, there's a question here. Well, there's a recommendation and saying, can you please make sure you have carbon monoxide fitted to your homes? That's quite important.
Can you repeat that? You have what?
Can you please ensure that you have carbon monoxide monitors fitted in your home?
Oh, you're talking about the detector.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
The gas you can't smell or taste.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. Well, I have a question for you, Sister Grace. So you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that when we're outside, because of the trees and all of these things and the plants, that it helps us have more oxygen. My question, it might seem a little silly, but I really don't know. Would having flowers and some things like this in our homes not only does it brighten up our homes like visually, but does having some plants and things like that and flowers in our homes help us have more, possibly better oxygen in our homes?
Fantastic question, James. I forgot to mention that. That's excellent question, because they have proved that having plants, having flowers in your home helps also to, it's like recycling the air. So as you're breathing out your carbon dioxide, your plants are using that carbon dioxide and then giving out oxygen. So you can have a recycling plant in your own home. You and the plants exchanging gases.
Oh, that is so fast. So the same things that are happening outside, we can bring them a little bit inside.
For sure, yeah.
So that means all of us men, we need to go out and buy our wives flowers today. Right? You gotta go out and do it.
And what is better is the ones that are in the pot, the ones you can water, the ones that are growing as well. Those are also the best ones because they are growing in your own home.
Fantastic, fantastic. Is there any other questions before we move on to our next presentation? Any other questions?
Just one comment to plants in the house. Plants in the house are great. My house is full of plants. Just one caveat here. Don't put plants in your bedroom, because if you happen to not sleep with an open window, but if you have your windows closed at night and you have a plant in your bedroom, that plant at night uses oxygen, because that's what plants do. During the day, they produce it, but during the night, they use it. So at night, when you're sleeping, take that plant out of your bedroom and put it in your living room.
Thank you, Dr.
Fantastic. So with that being said, now we're going to get into one of our last two topics. We're going to be discussing rest, right? And I think that all of us can acknowledge that sometimes we just feel like we never get enough rest. Well, today, James is going to share with us why we need to change that and how it's going to impact our overall health. So we're looking forward to hearing from it. James, it's over to you.
Thanks, James. Thanks for handing over. So my name is James Bell, and I'm a fourth-year medical student in London. I'm not a sleep expert, but there is a lot that I've learned through preparing this about rest and sleep that hopefully everybody else can benefit from as well. So rest. We all know that today in the 2021, it has been more of a chilled year. We've been at home, we've been relaxing, but it's still a case that many people aren't getting as much rest as we need to. Perhaps we're staying up later because we don't have a commute in the morning, or we're working longer hours at our desk and not getting enough sleep. And it's not often something we think about. We think about food a lot and exercise, but actually we can consider sleeping more to improve our overall health. As mentioned at the start, we want to look at a holistic plan to improve our health. So let's talk a bit about sleep deprivation. First, losing sleep. It's a really common cause for GP visits, people suffering from chronic fatigue. It impacts how well our immune systems are able to fight off infections, and sleep deprivation gives us less resistance to diseases and stress which come through daily life. I don't know if anybody wants to suggest which common health problems might be related to sleep. If anybody has any ideas, they might want to shout out. I can't see the chat.
Obesity, you can gain weight if you don't sleep well.
For sure.
Stress and anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. Mental health and well-being and stress. So I'm going to show some of these which might surprise people. So diabetes alongside weight gain, heart attacks and other cardiovascular problems such as strokes, depression, as already mentioned, and stress. And also cancer and tumors have actually been associated with sleep loss, not necessarily caused by, but associated with a lifestyle which includes sleep deprivation. Let's get to the next slide. So sleep quality. Does anyone have any ideas about how much sleep we should be having in terms of hours?
7 to 8 hours.
Perfect. 7 to 8 hours. And this occurs in about between 3 and 5 cycles of sleep. So you can see my my little laser. So this is our brain activity when we're awake, and this is when we have the highest frequency of activity. And as we sleep, through that first half an hour, we fall through these stages of sleep, which lead us to stage 4, the deepest part of sleep, when we have slow moving brain waves. And then over the next hour and a half cycle, the next 90-minute cycle up to 3 hours, we enter this stage called REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. And this is when you're dreaming. And this cycle of sleep is actually really important to getting good rest. It's not just about this deep sleep stages, it's also about these REM stages. And then we end up at this 8-hour point once we've gone through between 3 and 5 cycles. And the early hours are more restorative for sleep. Sleeping before midnight has actually been shown to improve overall sleep, as our body's circadian rhythm reacts to those early hours after sunlight has gone down. Sleeping medications have also been shown to suppress this dreaming stage, this REM sleep, and this leaves us with less refreshed sleep. So this sleeping medications, although they may make you feel like you've had a deeper sleep, over a long period of time, this may lead to chronic fatigue because these REM stages are really important. So what are some natural ways to improve sleep? Well, establishing a regular sleep cycle is actually the first thing that we can do. Sleeping at the same time, waking at the same time, planning your sleep is really helpful. Regular active exercise has already been mentioned as a way to improve sleep, can counteract our physical and emotional stress and fatigue. And exercise also helps to release endorphins and serotonin, which may improve your sleep, which have been shown to improve sleep actually, these hormones. Maybe having a bath or a warm, relaxing drink before bed may help you to relax if somebody struggles to sleep well. A really important one for these days is reducing screen time from half an hour to an hour before bedtime, because those devices that we use, such as your phone or your computer as well, have backlit, have lighting at the back basically, which is blue light, which reduces how much melatonin we produce, which is the hormone which tells our body that it's time to sleep. So yeah, reducing that time on your phone or on your computer before bed. Avoiding caffeine, as we know, as we've already been talked about with drugs and usage. This caffeine, not only does it stop us from sleeping, but once we are sleeping, caffeine reduces those REM stages that I mentioned, and it makes us sleep not as deep. So we avoid those stage 3 and stage 4 of the sleep, the deep parts, and it also makes us more likely to wake up during sleep. So caffeine is actually very harmful for people who are struggling to sleep. And also eating smaller and earlier evening meals may help you sleep better. Surprisingly, as much as we think of food as filling us up and making us tired, actually those late meals will not allow us to sleep as well as we can otherwise. So here are some relaxation techniques which may work if you're someone who struggles to get to sleep. A lot of them to do with tension that you may be holding throughout the day. So yeah, firstly, stretching tense areas. I can get quite a tense back actually, maybe from sitting in a chair all day or not getting enough time outdoors. So stretching that before bed really does help. You may be able to roll your neck in slow circles in one direction and the other one, and then turning your head to the left and right, just really trying to remove as much tension from your neck as you can. Some facial muscle exercises, which I learned was quite interesting. So such as scrunching your eyes up really tight and opening them wide, raising your eyebrows, doing a large smile, and relaxing your jaw. These sorts of tensing and relaxing the muscles in your face may help you to reduce tension built up there, which may be preventing sleep. Deep breathing exercises, as was mentioned by Grace, using your diaphragm to breathe fully and holding it for those 4 seconds and releasing for those 6 seconds may help you to relax as well. And one thing that I think many people, including myself, are maybe guilty of is rehearsing the day's problems at bedtime. You're there, you're lying, and you're just thinking, oh, that didn't go well today, or I've got, you know, that didn't happen. This may be what's preventing you from sleeping well, and just being able to leave the day as it's gone, and being able to relax and think of all the things that went well during the day may improve your relaxation before sleep. So spiritual rest is also something which I thought was worth including. And Psalms is quite helpful in terms of verses about sleep. Psalm 46 verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 116 verse 7 says, "Return to your rest, my soul, for the Lord has been good to you." And Psalm 4 verse 8 says, "I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety." And we know that the seventh day is day of rest for us. It's God's plan for proper balance of our bodies and our minds. And yes, I hope these verses and this other information will help you improve your sleep. If there are any questions, I am happy to take them now.
Fantastic, James. That was absolutely fantastic. Rest is one of my favorite topics, right? So is there anybody in the audience that has any questions for James before I interrogate him a little bit?
Well, I have a
quick question. Oh,
okay, you go first.
Yeah. Is there any such thing as too much sleep? Can you oversleep?
That is a really good question, actually, and it's something that I think a lot of people may be able to relate to. Essentially, I find that if I oversleep, I may be more groggy the next day, and I've had other people say the same thing. In terms of the scientific backing, I'm not sure. What is interesting, however, is that you can't recover lost sleep. So losing sleep is really harmful, but oversleeping the next day to try and make it back does not actually improve the loss in memory function and hippocampal function that may be caused by that. And those are just brain functions. So in terms of having excess sleep on a regular, I'm not sure. I might need to do a bit more research on, but definitely not fixing lost sleep.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, James, I have a few questions for you myself.
Okay,
so
go for it.
I noticed that at first you said that you made a comment that suggested that all sleep is not equal. So, you know, you have some of these young kids, they'll stay up all night playing video games and they'll go to bed like at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then they'll sleep 8 hours. Are you suggesting that those 8 hours are not the same as if I went to bed, say at like 10 o'clock and slept 10 to 6?
Yeah, believe it or not, it feels weird. We think that once you're sleeping, it's the same, but it's not true. As we know that our body works on this circadian rhythm where our body actually responds to change in light, as was mentioned in the sunlight section. So when the sun sets, our body releases a hormone called melatonin. And in those first early hours, about an hour and a half before midnight, is the rough way of phrasing it, is when it's best time to actually go to sleep. Your body is most responsive to that melatonin, yeah.
Wow, so you would not encourage people to stay up all night and then sleep?
I would not encourage it, no, not regularly.
Well, not all sleep is the same. So
not all sleep is the same, yeah.
Here's my second question for you, and this might take you a moment to think about. So I noticed on your slide, you said that we shouldn't, with the devices, that we shouldn't use devices for a half an hour to an hour before we rest.
Right.
You also stated that we shouldn't necessarily do a vigorous exercise right before we go to rest. And then you also stated we shouldn't necessarily eat right before we go to sleep. So if we can't eat or use our phones or exercise for an hour before we go to bed, what are some things we can do in our schedule to rearrange things to make it so we don't just find ourselves sitting on the couch for an hour waiting for the alarm to go off? What can we do?
Well, that is actually a really great question. I would say there are other things we can spend on our evenings. So activities such as reading or spending time with friends or family or relaxing, whatever you find enjoyable in the evening. In fact, essentially anything which isn't, there are lots of other things that you can do basically.
So reading doesn't have the same effect.
No, exactly.
Reading doesn't harm us.
So yeah, brain activity, fine. Things that are stimulating your brain, that's not the issue here. The issue is to do with the light that comes from your phone, which inhibits that melatonin release.
So if we want to have a conversation with a loved one, like our parents, before we go to bed, we should do it over the phone, not over FaceTime.
Sounds great. Exactly. Over the phone, not FaceTime.
Very, very interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. Well, James, fantastic. I can't wait for you to graduate and get out there and start saving the world. So with that being said, we're now moving into our last presentation. And I've been waiting for this all day, Sister Beatrice. I've been waiting for you to share your insight as to how trust can impact our health. So I'm very excited, and I hope everybody really takes out their notes and listens to what Sister Beatrice has to say. So over to you, Sister Beatrice.
Thank you, and excellent presentations until now. I'm really amazed at how well researched everything was and how well presented. And a big thank you to everybody and great compliments. This was so informative and so interesting, and I learned so much today. And just one question for James. During med school, I sure did not sleep a lot. How are you coping?
Depends. Exam season is a different story.
Yeah. Let's talk about something else. So let's talk about trust. Let me just share my screen here for you. There we go. Let's talk about trust. So, of course, we've talked about the New Start principle. And yes, you've come across the number 8 a lot of times. 8 principles, 8 glasses of water during the day. So the trust is now the 8th health principle that we're going to talk about today. And why are we talking about trust? Trust in a higher power. So we know we're not all Adventists here. Some of us are from a secular background. But I really do believe that trust in a higher power, trust in something that is larger than yourself, trust that things will work out somehow, that somebody is watching out for you, is already very reassuring. But if we talk about trust, we do need to also talk a little bit about what to trust and who to trust. Because especially in the last year and in the last weeks, there's been plenty of things going around, rumors and conspiracies, and in the end, we don't know what to believe anymore. So you've probably heard about a few myths. So for example, if you eat a lot of garlic, we can prevent most of diseases, including the coronavirus. Well, that, for example, is a myth. Then we've heard about adding pepper or spicy food to your meals that will also prevent you from getting sick. Well, that is again a myth. Again, a myth. People don't like wearing masks, especially now when it's hot and we feel, oh, we can't breathe, but actually it's just uncomfortable. But surgeons who are in the surgery theater for hours and hours on end, they don't complain. And they certainly do not have any intoxication or poisoning from wearing a mask. Well, sunny weather. Of course, now we all want to be in the sun and we think, oh, it can't be anything healthier and anything great. And yes, we know, we've just talked about sunlight. Sunlight is amazing and it's good for our bones, it's good for our minds, it's good for our health. But of course, it does not prevent the disease. So of course, we do still need to stick to social distancing measures. I know this is painful, but just a little bit, and then we can get out of this together. So what are we to trust? Where do we get our sources? Of course, we want to talk now about trust in God. And this is the best trust I can recommend. And we're talking about trust in a religious setting, because what is a religious setting? A religious setting is, of course, a church, it's a spiritual community, it's other faith groups, it is trust in a setting where people come together and trust in a higher power. And yes, benefits of trust in a higher power, benefits of faith are not just from attending a service. Let's say we as Adventists, we go to church every Sabbath, and that's a great thing, or we worship every Sabbath. But in the end, not just going to church is going to give us the health benefit. Just like going to church, going into a garage and sitting in a garage for an hour will not turn you into a car. Going to church will not turn you into a Christian, but actually engaging in religious activities, in community, that is what does the trick. So many studies actually have been conducted about trust, about faith. And that's very interesting that there is actually medical evidence for this. So the most consistent finding across all studied groups was that spirituality itself improves the quality of life. So one researcher called Ellison, he described those benefits. What happens when we exercise our faith? Yes, faith is a muscle and we can exercise it. So private devotion, prayer, strengthen a person's religious belief system. Strong religious systems, when they are accompanied by a high level of certainty, of being able to really trust that something is going on that is larger than yourself, somebody's looking out for you and you are certain that things will work out, they have a substantial and positive influence on your well-being. And of course, individuals with strong religious faith report higher levels of life satisfaction, greater personal happiness, and fewer negative psychosocial consequences of traumatic life events. In the end, trust and faith helps us cope with whatever life throws at us. So what about religious activities? What are religious activities? Well, if we talk about activities, we're having an activity right now. We're sitting in a health expo. We're sharing about our faith. We're sharing about our principles, about health principles, about our belief. We're in this together. This group that is organizing this has already grown together as a little faith community here already, and a little health bubble here. So people who engage in organized religious activities have improved health and life satisfaction. And yes, religious affiliation of any kind increases, a lack of religious affiliation increases the risk of depression. So why is that? Because of course there is a connection between social relationships and survival. And what do we have? Why do we go to a church? I remember when I was in children's Sabbath school, you know, when we were as little children, while the adults were having the big sermon and their own adult classes, we had our little children's groups with our favorite auntie who would talk with us about the Bible, and it was wonderful. I was always looking forward to this time. And one day, this auntie, she asked us, well, why do you like going to church? And we were all quiet. We were like, because we all did not want to say it. We were maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years old. And yes, we were supposed to say the truth. But what was the truth? Because we really wanted to meet our friends. And then she said, well, you're going to church because you want to meet your friends, don't you? And we were so relieved that this was the right answer that she had been looking for. Because yes, as Christians, as believers, we do worship together, and we do worship together because there's a social connection, and this is what we're supposed to do. And this is the one thing that actually has a health benefit on our mood and on our health. It improves the quality of life. Religious attendance and private devotion strengthens our belief system. And strong religious systems, when they're, again, I said this before, they have a positive influence. They have greater personal happiness. What does spirituality actually do? It helps believers, of course, but it also has a positive impact on the community around us. It benefits the non-believers in the community. So a research was conducted again that found that communities gain health benefits when they have higher numbers of faithful people, of religious people that emphasize implicit obedience to God and his standards of conduct. And what was the reason? The non-believers benefited as well because their social norms favor conformity, which means we do want to kind of do as our neighbors do, right? We do want to conform with the community around us. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So if we're surrounded by people who believe and who adhere to certain standards, then this is what we automatically do, whether we believe in the same thing or not. So the communities embraced a healthier lifestyle just because of their religious neighbors. And then, of course, trust in a loving God produces a positive and health-promoting mind. So there's nothing more reassuring, of course, than peace and satisfaction experienced by those who place their lives in the hands of a loving God. And we know that he loves us. And of course, it brings health and happiness and a sense of purpose. We do know that he will give us peace. We do have peace of mind, and we do have a feeling that things will work out. Even if things are not great at the moment, we do know in the long run that God is going to work things out for us. Yes, and when we talk about trust and when we talk about faith, we do need to talk about stress. We already talked briefly about stress before, so I'm going to cut this a little bit short. But of course, trust is associated with reduction in stress, depression, and loneliness. So of course, stress means we are exposed to stress hormones. And those stress hormones, they stimulate our nervous system in a way that puts stress on different organs of our body. And those organs then become weaker because they're in constant alert. And this constant alert is tiring and it is stressful in the end and weakens our body. So stress can cause heart palpitations. Maybe some of you who have been really stressed, they've noticed that their heartbeat goes up. They have noticed that the heart doesn't probably pump as much or pumps too much, and they feel that it's a little bit not rhythmic, but arrhythmic. And that means that could be a sign of stress. And that is really unpleasant sometimes and should be definitely checked out with a health professional. Well, yes, stress induces shallow and rapid breathing. We heard earlier about air. How are we supposed to breathe? We're supposed to breathe deeply because that will calm us right down. But when we're chronically stressed, we do not breathe well. We sit hunched, we are tense, and our breathing actually gets so shallow that we do not get enough oxygen in our bodies and where? In our brains. And of course, stress has a very unpleasant side effect. It suppresses and slows down the digestive tract, and we can have very bad constipation and indigestion as well. And interestingly, stress induces blood clots. Stress results in a diversion of the blood supply away from the digestive system, and of course, into the places where it's needed, into our lungs, into our heart, but it affects digestive processes and induces a state of increased blood clotting. So this can have detrimental effects. Chronic stress, yes, unfortunately, can lead to diabetes because it causes an increase in blood glucose. When we're stressed, our brain needs sugar because this is the only nutrient our brain can actually process. So our brains are trying to work harder, so our body is trying to give us more glucose. But that also means a high blood glucose level on a chronic, in a chronic time, all the time, is of course not healthy, and that may lead to diabetes. And of course, diabetes has plenty of side effects that are very, very, very bad for us. And that can cause, again, many other problems like cardiovascular disease or other health problems. And yes, stress in general causes us to get sick. Not only anxiety and depression and phobias and disorders and memory problems and sleep problems, but also a reduced immune function. So I remember when I was very stressed, I was close to burnout many years ago in a different job. And I remember that year I was sick all the time. I had colds, I had fevers, I had shivers. I was not in a good place. Why? All because of stress, because it does also suppress our immune system. And yes, stress has a bad influence on our mood. But what can we do? What can we do to counteract the bad effects of stress? And yes, we've talked about all those 7 principles before. They are all helpful to counteract stress-induced effects, and everything: nutrition, exercise, sunlight, air, plenty of water, all of these things, they help us fight chronic stress. But one more thing I need to add is prayer. Prayer is the one thing that helps us cope. The Bible says the path of those who live right is like the early morning light. It gets brighter until the full light of day. Well, most of you are probably familiar with 4 types of prayer. That different religious groups and different confessions have different types of prayer. So there's the petitionary prayer, which is probably familiar to all of us. We're asking for material things. Then there's a ritual prayer, probably reading from a book of prayers or reading a certain number of prayers that we've learned by heart. Then there's the meditative prayer, feeling or being in immersing ourselves in the higher presence. And of course, there's the colloquial prayer, talking to God as a friend and just asking him for guidance in making decisions and just having a chat with God. Well, guess what? All of these types of prayer have been studied, and it turns out the colloquial prayer, just having a chat with God, correlates best with happiness and religious satisfaction. Unfortunately, ritual prayer, just the empty recital of prayers, was associated with negative effect, producing feelings all the more sad, lonely, tense, and fearful. But having God as a friend, as somebody who just walks with us and takes us by our hand and telling him and sharing with him our joys and sorrows, that can bring happiness, healing, and satisfaction. Of course, there are plenty of ways to try to self-empower. What does self-empower mean? There are plenty of classes out there, and we know there's exercise, there's meditational things. There are so many offers that will help us, apparently, to cope out of our own strength. But unfortunately, we cannot solve our problems all by ourselves. These methods don't have the same effectiveness. And many of those techniques are self-hypnosis. And to be honest, I'm not a friend of self-hypnosis. When we talked about sleeping problems earlier, there can be different methods of trying to fall asleep. And one of them is, for example, autogenous training. That is, again, a form of self-hypnosis that I'm not a friend of. I'd like to be in control. And to be in control of my own body means to have proper relaxation techniques that are not hypnotic. And yes, prayer and faith gives me a sense of control, because through prayer, I have spiritual values, and they help me. They help me as a compass in my life. They are motivated to treat others well and to develop peaceful human relationships. Regular spiritual practices with a faith community, they help with longevity, with better quality of life. And of course, they do decrease risk of stroke and heart attack. Just for that, all those preventable diseases are indeed prevented through faith and all the related healthy practices, all the healthy lifestyle that comes with a religious attitude. Faith provides strength to overcome stress and destructive habits. We talked about smoking cessation earlier. Smoking is very difficult to give up, but we also know about alcoholism. People who are attending AA meetings are probably familiar with this. Giving away the responsibility to a higher power, believing that the control is there, but I do not have to control things by myself, but I can hand this over to God, who will help me. This will strengthen me, and it can give me peace of mind and help me reach my full potential through positive choices, because my values that are instated by my faith are going to give me direction in life. The Bible actually says, you will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you. Why? Because he trusts in you. When we do have a close relationship with God, when we see God as a friend, we have this peace of mind. It doesn't mean that, of course, there will be no problems, there will be no troubles. Of course, trouble and turmoil are all around us. They're even around us now. But look at us, here we are. We're here, we're sharing, we're together, we're sharing as a community in Christ, we're sharing in a community of faith. And God gives us this peace of mind that we need to overcome stress and to cope with problems and to cope with everything that life throws at us. You probably heard of an evangelist in the last century, Dwight Moody, and he's quoted by many. And he said, trust in yourself. And unfortunately, you're doomed to disappointment. Trust in your friends, and they will die and leave you. Trust in money, and you may have taken it from you. But trust in God, and you will never be confounded in time or eternity. God is the one that will never let you down. God is eternal. God is always going to be there for you. So let's talk a little bit about this. How gullible are we? What sources do we trust? Do we trust everything that we read on social media or that we see on TV? How do we choose what to believe? Where is our compass? How do we weigh our information? And I always say, well, if the information that I have is not helping me protect my neighbor, if the information that I got is not helping me spread love in my neighborhood, in my community, if the information that I have does not uplift the Most High, then this information is wrong and I should probably stay away from it. What influences can we trust? We know we should probably not trust the internet, but where do we get our information from? These days, everything is online, isn't it? But of course, we do need to be very discerning, and we do need to trust our friends. I'm so happy that I'm here with fellow doctors, with fellow health professionals. And you know why? I trust them because I know they've gone through the same training that I've gone through. Even though we've never met in person, we've only met virtually, I know I can trust them with my life. And anytime you have any questions, any doubts, anything that, any conspiracy theory that might come along that you find interesting, why don't you check this with your brother and sister, with your people, with your community that you know are health professionals? Why don't you check with them? Why do you have to go to YouTube and check with dubious people who you don't know where they're from and what their motivation is? But why don't you check with your brothers and sisters that you've been worshiping with for decades and that you know very well as trusted friends? Why don't you trust them and ask them if you have any questions at all about medical research, about medical questions? And then, of course, we have to talk about trusting God. What benefits have I noticed by having faith in God? How well have I coped with stressful situations? And you know what? This is a good exercise to do. If you want to improve your resilience and you're going through a tough time, always remember tough times that were in the past. How did you cope then? What were the values? Identify the values, identify what helped you then. And that usually points you to God. God is the one that helps you through. I myself have have had many difficult times. I've changed countries a few times. I've been a missionary. I've been in demanding jobs. I've worked as a doctor. It's a tricky time to live in, of course. And sometimes we go through situations that are really, really hard. But we also know that we have come out of them, and we've come out of them stronger. It is always important to remember that. And yes, we do need to remember our purpose in life. God does not only give us peace of mind, but he also gives us purpose. He gives us direction. What does he want me to do with my life? He doesn't just give me life and say, here, deal with it. But he says, I have given you this life as a gift. What are you going to do with it to honor this gift? And then let's talk about stress. What effects of stress have I experienced? And yes, I do speak from experience. I have had heart palpitations. And I already shared earlier when I was going through burnout that I was not feeling well. But of course, many visits to physicians could have been avoided if I had just coped with my stress better. And if in those situations when I couldn't see a way out, I could have trusted more. And yes, trust and faith is a muscle. We do need to strengthen it every day. We do need to read the Bible. We do need to pray. We do need to walk with God as a trusted friend. This is how we can exercise our faith. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Sister Beatrice, that was absolutely fantastic. I knew there was a reason why I've been waiting for you all day long. It was fantastic. It's actually unbelievable. So you're telling me that people who just have faith and they pray, they're more likely to be happier, healthier people.
That's true. That's correct. Yes.
Have you heard people say that people tend in hospitals, they tend to recover better when they pray and people of faith? Is that true?
Yes, that is also true. Of course, you have to be very careful here because no, you cannot pray your sickness away. That does not work. But prayer helps trust in the treatment that you receive. Prayer takes this pressure away from you, this uncertainty. Will it work? Can I trust my doctor? But these are questions that I can put to God, and then I can trust in the treatment that I am receiving because I know God is ultimately in control. And that is what it means.
Well, fantastic. We just want to thank you so much for finishing out the last presentation on trust. And before we get to our closing, we actually have a question from the audience back for James Bell. It was a question about rest. And the question was, does the amount of sleep that we need change throughout the course of our lives, through infancy, through adolescence, all the way up to senior citizen into that period? Does it change?
Right, that's a good question. Essentially, the way over age, so kids need a lot more sleep than adults do, and it's believed that how much sleep you need decreases up to the age of 60. But once you're at that point, people aged 65 and over are recommended to still have 7 to 8 hours of sleep, if that makes sense. The amount of melatonin, as I mentioned before, that was produced in older people was actually lower. So at this point, sleeping patterns may change. People may wake up earlier and sleep earlier as well. And that, and people may not sleep as well, but it's still recommended.
So it seems like you're saying then that it's more important when they're in that very young age, but once they get out of adolescence, from 18 to 90 kind of thing, it's all still pretty much 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah, I mean, the 7 to 8 hours is recommended for everyone. It's no doubt that having 7 to 8 hours sleep is better than 6 hours sleep, but how much is needed is how much is necessary. Does decrease a little bit as you get older, but once you're at 65 and over, is recommended to still have 7 to 8 hours sleep and not less, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, James, for answering that. We didn't want to leave the questionnaire without, we didn't want to leave the presentation without answering that question. So now that we've coming to an end, I just want to say how much I enjoyed all of this, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you guys further. But now we're going to turn over to Sister Vivia. She's going to share a closing thought, a summary, and then we're going to pass it on to our pastor for closing prayer. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, James. And thanks to all the presenters and all the attendees. Presenters, your presentations were amazing and interesting. I have learned a lot. And I pray you, those that were listening or watching have learned as well. And I pray that you also have taken notes. Now, let's quickly recap what we have learned today. So, the 8 principles of New Start, the acronym. N is for nutrition. And we were told that we should eat food that will give us nutrients, good nutrients, vitamins and minerals. Never eat anything that you can't pronounce. Never eat what you can't visualize. Don't eat anything that won't rot or don't grow under the ground, or don't grow, sorry. E is for exercise. We need to get up. We need to move our bodies. We need to get our blood flowing and pumping around the body. So we need to do at least 150 minutes exercise per week, broken down into daily installments. Choose an activity you enjoy. Set a time of the day. Stick to it. Get working. W for water. 70% of our body is comprised of water, 80% for the brain. You can only live 3 days without water. If you're thirsty, that means you're dehydrated. So start drinking water, at least 8 glasses per day. It will reduce fatigue. It will flush toxins out of your body. And it will keep your body healthy. It will also help with the blood flow around your body. S for sunshine. Sunshine is so good for your body and the environment. So on a sunny day like today, once we're finished here, open your windows, air your pillows and your bed linen. Go into nature and enjoy the beautiful sunshine. It is recommended that we do 20 minutes per week, and this will help our bodies to function better. However, we need to limit our exposure to the sunshine. Never allow yourself to get burned. So, simply put, enjoy sunshine, stay in the shade. T is for temperance. When we are temperate, we have a balanced life. We have self-control, and we should be moderate. Use good things moderately. So don't oversleep, don't overeat, etc. We should abstain from certain things or from all things that are harmful to the body, like alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. A is for air, which is the breath of life, oxygen. We can only live minutes without oxygen. All cells are made of oxygen, so it is important, especially the brain. Fresh air is fresher when we take a walk by the water or when we walk in the woods. So let us get out in the fresh air and we'll have a walk, which will help your blood circulation, and it will also improve learning, just to name a few. We should also look at the air we breathe in our homes. The we're using, some of them may be toxic, so avoid those. We need to ventilate our rooms, even in the winter, and we need to get rid of mold and mildews. Practice good posture. as well, because poor posture cramps your organs. Breathe deep. R is for rest. We can't emphasize how much rest is important to our bodies. Lack of it is dangerous. It affects all aspects of your life. So therefore, we recommend you sleep 7 to 8 hours per night. Early hours are best. So go to sleep before midnight. It is recommended that you sleep an hour, go to bed at least an hour before midnight, and which is better than an hour and a half after midnight. Reduce the screen time. A lot of us tend to watch television up until we fall asleep before the television, then we switch it off and roll into bed. That is not good for us. We should avoid caffeine. Eat smaller and earlier. Eat smaller meals and earlier in the day. No vigorous exercise before bedtime. And what I gain most of all is, other than all the things that we can do to help us to sleep, when we switch off our screens an hour before bedtime, we should use that time for spiritual purpose. Read, as James read, Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. So listen to spiritual materials, read the spiritual books, pray, and be still and listen to God. And trust. We need T for trust. We need, this sums it all up. We need to trust in a higher power, someone that is larger than us, someone that will help us to see the connection between all these 8 principles and help us to put them into practice. So in a religious setting, we trust in a higher power. So engage in religious activities. Spirituality improves the quality of life. Private devotion, prayer, meditating on a higher power, all these things will help. Trust and faith in a loving God will help us to cope with the challenges that we're facing, especially during these COVID days. Trust and faith will improve our health and will reduce the stress. Trust in a loving God promotes a good state of mind, and it helps us to our bodies to, and it helps our bodies. Prayer will help us to cope. Have a chat with God as you feel, and you will feel more satisfied. Talk to him as you would talk to a friend. And we cannot solve our problems by ourselves. So I would encourage you to trust in God. And the text I would like to leave is trust in God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. He will help you to bring all these 8 principles into your lives. So let us trust in God. Okay, so that's the quick summary. Now we have a survey form which we would like to send to everyone, each person that attended, but we need your permission and your contact details. So if possible, before you log off, could you drop into the chat your contact details, your email details, so that we can send you the form? Because as a spin-off to this these presentations, we would like to have other programs, but we need to know what you're interested in. And yeah, we will only use your details for this purpose and this purpose only. It won't be shared with anyone outside this group. So I pray that you have had a good time. You have learned a lot, and it was simple enough for you to go away and start practicing as of today. So Pastor Sweeney, over to you.
Thank you very much, Elder Vivier. And so as I give a vote of thanks, let me do so through our closing prayer. So I invite you to just bow your heads and close your eyes as I pray. Loving Father in heaven, we just want to give thanks to you, especially for this opportunity that we've had to put on a first of its kind in this virtual expo. We thank you, Lord, for the health team at the Camp Hill Seventh-day Adventist Church for their vision to engage in this. We want to thank you for her team and for the support that has been given us through our North England Conference health leader, Lord, for her support. And we also give thanks to the presenters who, Lord, the wisdom and knowledge that you have given them, have shared it amongst all those present on this virtual platform. We give thanks for them, for their support and for their time. And Lord, we of course want to thank all those behind the scenes who have been working with the technology, and we give thanks, Lord, for also their support and help. And of course, Lord, we want to thank all of those who have attended on this platform, that Lord, indeed, as they have not only just found the information shared helpful, but also recognizing, as the Bible tells us, in fact, the psalmist in Psalm 134, verse 19, tells us in a very modern version that we are wonderfully, we are marvelously made, Lord. And we just want to thank you for making us that way. But Lord, I pray that we will follow these wonderful principles for which, using that which you have given us, natural ways to keep healthy and to enjoy life to the full. That's what you desire for each and every one of us. And may we always give thanks to you, and may we always recognize that indeed we can have a friendship with you, a friendship that will, yes, help us towards enjoying good health, because you desire our best. So thank you, Lord, for all that you have done, and we just praise you. And as we part from one another on this virtual platform, that your watch, care, and protection will go with each and every one of us and our loved ones, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks everyone for attending. Don't forget to leave us your contact details so that we can keep in touch with you and send you the form, the feedback form. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day and the coming week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. God bless.
God bless. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. God bless.
God bless.
You. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, Sharon. Bye.
See you, Marjorie.
Yeah. Don't
and
shut
Andrew.
down. Camp Hill, don't shut down.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you right. Where should I send my details?
Can you drop it in the chat, please?
Okay, to everyone.
No, you can send it to myself, Vivia, privately.
Okay. All right then.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I need my beruti, my beruti.